I am the example. That's my intention. The choices I make each and every day, they are not just for me, they are for everyone around me. I am the example to everyone I touch and the compound effect of those people. My example has a flow-on effect to everyone around me. And I do not take that responsibility lightly. Everything I do, I set the example. I am grateful for the opportunity to be the example. I set the example. That's my intention. I set the example through my actions, not my words, not by what I say, but by what I do every single day.
What's happening, everybody? This is Walt Blackman, and welcome again. We're having some fun here today. We're going to be talking about what's happening in our prisons in Arizona. DOC, call it what you want to. We're going to be talking about that, and we are going to deep dive in some of the bigger issues that are going on in DOC. So this is Walt Blackman, Legislative District 7 State Representative, representing the great district. I'd say one of the better districts. Don't get mad, but that's how I feel. So let's go ahead and get started, everybody. My name is Walt Blackman. Hang on and let's go. All right. So I wanted to broken. They are our biggest, I would say our second largest budget item here in Arizona when we're talking about the budget. And because of that, we see a lot of issues that some folks are already aware of coming out of the DOC. Now, before I go any further, this is not about the men and women who work at DOC. It is not. It is about the system that has become so broken that people who work there have leaked tapes, are scared to come forward about the issues they see, quit. We have a high retention rate, a low recruitment rate, despite the fact that we have put dollars into the system to try to keep people, correctional officers, which I believe is one of the toughest jobs out there. So we're going to explore that, and we are going to see what we can come up with to try to help these folks. You're more than welcome to jump in if you'd like. You can, if you are just getting on here, you can go to my YouTube and check it out. You can also go to TikTok and find this. Some of you may already be on TikTok, or you can go to my website, votewaltb.com. And again, you can also go to Twitter. So let's go ahead and get started, because it's important that you know what's going on, because it's your tax dollars that we're talking about. And I think it's important that you know that. So here is the deal. This problem has been happening for years, long before I became a legislator, and long before some of these other folks who work in this space have become members of the community that help. I'm going to play, excuse me, I'm going to play a clip. Now, last summer, I was appointed with several other outstanding members of the community to actually look into this, and it was the Independent Prison Oversight Commission. Governor Hobbs actually appointed, wrote an executive order for this group to get together and to look into the issues of the prison system. I'm also going to show you the report that came out of that, some snippets from the report, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And you're going to be amazed at what you see in this space.
A new law this week that forms an independent prison oversight office in Arizona. The state's prison system has been under scrutiny for years, from violence to health care to extreme heat.
12 News journalist Erica Stapleton breaks down what to expect with this new law.
Ever since she said she got out of prison in 2018,
feels like it's been a long time coming.
Kara Jansen vowed to try and make things better for people who are incarcerated.
It's always been a fight and a losing one, and this year we had bipartisan support.
For years, she's been pushing for prison oversight, including a new bill Governor Katie Hobbs signed into law this week, establishing an independent correctional oversight office in Arizona. The new law, in part, allows the office to inspect prisons and take confidential complaints from prison staff and people who are incarcerated. The office will also track issues like reports of suicides and sexual assaults, and how long it takes the corrections department to respond to complaints.
I think it's going to be super crucial to have a team that's able to get inside the prisons unannounced, so that they can't put on a dog and pony show, if you will.
Over the past several years, 12 News and the I-Team reported on a series of issues in Arizona's prison system, from staffing shortages to broken locks to extreme heat to violence like a recent spate of murders and continued prison suicides. Plus, Arizona's Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation and Reentry has been in a legal battle with the ACLU for more than a decade over poor prison health care. The department currently under an order from a federal judge to make changes.
Do you think the department should be responsible if someone takes their own life in prison?
I think that the department is responsible.
The new oversight office will operate independently of current prison director Ryan Thornell and of Governor Katie Hobbs.
I am supportive of ensuring that there's as much accountability and transparency and oversight as possible.
Kara Jansen previously served on the Governor's Prison Oversight Commission, which reported in 2023 it was not well positioned to serve as an independent prison oversight, recommending Arizona should have an independent office with paid positions, indicating volunteers were not the right framework and that oversight work takes significant time.
People are sometimes afraid to call into the prison.
ADCRR did not respond to our request for an interview Wednesday. Jansen hopes the oversight office won't just be talk, but that it takes action too.
And I think having this independent office will give people comfort in knowing that what they have to say is safe and will be looked into.
Well, Erica, this seems like a positive for the prison system. Do we know who will be appointed?
Well, Governor Hobbs said she does not know at this point, but we know there is criteria, including things like you can't be a person who's contracted with the Department of Corrections and receive money from them. So there are limitations to who can be in charge of this office here. And we also don't know at this point when the office is going to start. The person.
Okay, so we talked about that a little bit. I know that Karen Jensen, she is a advocate in this space. She mentioned the the Independent Prison Oversight Commission. She was part of that commission, as I was, and other professionals in this area, this space, and we came up with a independent. I would say some guardrails or some recommendations for the governor's office to do this. Now, I will tell you, it seemed like it was a waste of time, and I'm just going to be honest with you. It had no teeth. We had no funding to do it. And I think it was more of a show than anything else, because all we did is gather information. And with that information that we gathered, it was just more of a dog and pony show. And I am going to say that, not say anything negative against the executive on this. I don't think that the executive was prepared to see or see those findings. And it's like the Titanic. And this is how I explain the Department of Corrections, is that you see an iceberg coming and it is too late to turn. And when you are trying to turn this huge organization, it does not turn on a dime. It takes years. It takes culture change. It takes real funding to go after some of the issues that we see in the prison. So I don't think that we did much other than get information from what we found there. So again, how do we get past this? Well, number one, we need to do better than we did with that oversight, prison oversight that we've had. I'm going to show you a clip on that and how that got started, and it kind of brings things back around into perspective on. It's a mess. Here we go.
The scope of work is going to go far beyond that healthcare issue. That ultimately this commission will have to produce a report by the fall recommending ways to improve the state's prison system. The commission members will have access to prison facilities, a lot of detailed records, and the opportunity to interview inmates about the living conditions on the inside. Now, those members include state lawmakers, former inmates, family members of current prisoners, and activists. This was more of an introductory meeting where the commissioners spoke in very broad terms about the issues facing inmates and staff. Hobbs opened the meeting by reading from prepared remarks before leaving. Here's the governor explaining why she created this commission in the first place.
For too long, stories of inadequate health care of inmates, living in inhumane conditions, of inmates and officers being put in unnecessarily dangerous situations, and of a general lack of transparency have unfortunately become the norm. As part of my commitment to build an Arizona for everyone, I'm determined to change that.
State prison system has made its share of headlines in recent years, and usually for the wrong reasons, from doors that won't lock to botched executions to a broken health care system. Even Amnesty International has made allegations of ill treatment of inmates. The panel will take a look at all of those issues.
Okay, so again, that was the initial independent prison oversight commission. She opened it up. It was our first meeting, and you saw the end of that. Where Miss Jensen talked about, we did this. However, we probably could have did more of this. Now, the actual report that came out of this. Now, this is where I segue in to SB 1507. SB 1507 is Senator Bullock's bill. And that bill actually is the one that got signed. However, it's the one that has no funding attached to it. We'll get more into why the funding piece didn't have the resources that it needed to make an impact on it. So here is the let me see if I can make that bigger for you all. It doesn't look like it's that big. Hold on, let me do this for you. All right, well, that's about as big as it I can. Okay, here we go right there. Hope everybody can kind of see that right there. So what we did, this was prepared about the time when we started this deal, and the board actually made some visits. We made two visits, a visit to Perryville and also a visit to the Tucson unit. And if you're familiar with the Tucson unit, that is the unit that had the issues. Now, with the Perryville visit, it says, in the midst of the concerns about the heat of the Perryville, members of the commission went on an informal tour of the complex. And what was discovered there is that they were using swamp coolers, and you're talking about 120-degree weather. That was one of the issues at that prison. When we're talking about Tucson, on October 3rd of 2023, members of the commission, accompanied by the staff from the governor's office and volunteers from the Pennsylvania Prison Society and the John Howard Association. Now, those two associations and the state of Pennsylvania, they have a program, a pilot, not a pilot program, but an oversight that improved the issues that they had in Pennsylvania. And because of that, they were able to come out here to Arizona and show us what right looked like. They gave us some of their recommendations, and we took them to heart. Now, Tucson is the largest ADCRR complex in Arizona, seating on 640 acres. It's comprised of 8 housing units with a total bed capacity of 5,400 plus. The complex houses a variety of custody levels. So we got minimum, medium, and closed. So close is where they either in a protective custody or they are in solitary confinement. The complex also has mental health units, and the Cimarron unit is a closed custody unit, and that has a bed capacity of over 645. Now, that was back in 2023. Okay. Now, this is the part that I want you all to see, the commission's recommendations. And then this will help us segue into SB 1507. Now, the short term, the commission's recommendation, first, the preliminary report is the culmination of months of work from the commission members. This took time, commitment, and collaboration from dedicated volunteers with diverse perspectives and expertise. These are the folks that were on the commission. This preliminary report offers a short-term and long-term recommendations. The short-term, the commission experiences over the last 7 months has made clear that the volunteer commission faces significant challenges to conduct meaningful independent oversight of the state's correctional system. While the commission held regular meetings, conducted 2 site visits, reviewed data and information from ADCRR to comply with the executive order that Governor Hobbs signed into effect, was not the ideal framework for oversight work. And that's where I am talking about there was no teeth in this. So the long-term recommendations, while the commission worked independently from the department, that's the Department of Corrections, and had the ability to express in the executive order to reasonable access and inspect the prison facilities and records for the purpose of monitoring and reporting information. It cannot truly serve as an independent oversight commission while housed within the governor's office. Thus, the commission understands the importance of identifying pathways towards long-term solutions. The commission encourages bipartisan pathways, 1507, to deliver long-term solutions for oversight that will last beyond the Hobbs administration. Any long-term solutions would require dedicated funding and staffing to accomplish meaningful, incredible work, and needs legislative change to get it done. Now, this is funny to me, because here's the deal. This is a report that went to the executive. Of course, we have the signature of Governor Hobbs. We saw the tape where she talked about the need for oversight. If you look at some of her campaign, when she was campaigning for office for governor, she actually talked about the need for oversight, what was needed, and was really on top of these things. Now, again, I am not beating up Governor Hobbs. I am not doing that. However, I don't know if her staff is not telling her everything that is going on with this thing, because she started out wanting to fix this, but all of a sudden the feedback that we got when SB 15 or SB 1507 was running is that they weren't going to sign it if it was on the budget. They weren't going to accept that. So the ask to facilitate this, to fund this, was $1.5 million. The funding was stripped out by my amendment because that was the stopping point right there, that the governor was not going to sign the bill if it had funding in it, 1.5. So we stripped it out. And in the bill, I'll show you the bill of 1507. And it's interesting that now that is the conversation piece of why, the conversation piece is, well, why wasn't this bill? I don't know if you all can really see that. Why didn't this bill have funding? Okay. And it did. This bill had a funding of $1.5 million. Look at line 33. You may not be able to see that. Appropriates $1.5 from the state general fund FY 2026 to the office. Now, if I'm writing a bill and if I'm co-sponsoring or if I am supportive of a bill, as I am 1507, a Bullock bill, and the word on the street says, well, we're not going to sign the budget if, excuse my dogs, if they start barking. Excuse me. I had to tell them to shut up. We're not going to sign the bill if it has that funding to it. Okay, then we will strip it out and we will put in ways to be able to fund this, and some of the ways to fund that bill with the amendment. If you go back and look at the amendment, federal grants, gifts, and donations to the funding mechanism part. However, that's not the way to run a department. That is not the way to run a department. What is also in this bill, and I'm thinking that they missed this, that it authorized the office to issue subpoenas to the department for records, documents, and data in the possession of the department or its staff, contractors, or representatives. Now, if you look at the statute, there is also a statute that chairs have the authority to subpoena. We have subpoena power according to statutes already. This was baked into the bill from Senator Bullock, and that's a great idea to do because, after a while, you get tired of messing with DOC because you go to them and you say, hey, listen, we need this, we need that, and we don't get it. We get stonewalled, we get slow walked, and we continue to have these issues that we are seeing now. Broken locks, escapes, beatings, staff assaults, all these things. And we are continuing to put dollars into a system that is broken. Again, this is not directed toward the people who work there. It is not directed to the director or the staff or the corrections officers. This is directed to the system. The system is broken. And as lawmakers and as folks that are in this space, we have an obligation to fix the system, especially if lawmakers are especially if taxpayers are paying billions of dollars into this system. Now, I want to show you something else. And these are just some of the things that have happened in the prison system. Now, a month ago, well, actually, a couple of weeks ago, there was another murder. As you know, last month there were 3 murders, and I'm gonna bring some of that stuff up. And if there were oversight, maybe some of these murders probably would not have happened. So here is one that I am going to show you. And here is one that I am going to show you. And it's the notorious prisoner now accused of killing a group of inmates in the prison system. So take a look at this.
That tells us why Wassenaar ended up in a position where he could have committed more violence. Joe?
After Ricky Wassenaar was handed 6 life sentences for holding 2 prison guards hostage, he was sent to Michigan. Prison records show he ended up back in Arizona and eventually gained more freedoms behind bars. Was it a warning ignored?
And I said, look, and if I were you, I wouldn't put him in a cell with anybody.
Donna Ham leads a prison reform nonprofit and says back in November, an infamous prisoner personally called her to say he had just killed his cellmate and would do it again.
In 41 years, this is the most unusual call I've ever gotten. Nobody's ever called to confess.
Ricky Wassenaar's 81-year-old cellmate had just died. The Department of Corrections told Ham they investigated the death and concluded it was by natural causes. Ham said Wassenaar insisted to her he did it.
And I said, look, even if you don't believe he killed this man, I think you need to understand that this man is hell-bent on taking credit for killing a cellmate. And if I were you, I wouldn't put him in a cell with anybody.
The prison had reason to be wary of Wassenaar.
Overpowered a correctional officer.
The images are hard to forget. Back in 2004, Wassenaar took over a Buckeye prison tower with fellow inmate Stephen Coy. They held 2 guards hostage, beating them during what one hostage called 15 days of hell. At times, Wassenaar and his accomplice took turns walking the rooftop.
And this remains a delicate and dangerous situation.
After surrendering, Wassenaar got 16 life sentences. A correction officers union leader tells 12 News Wassenaar's surrender conditions included his wishes to remain out of state behind bars and not to be with another cellmate. Ham says Wassenaar made that clear to her as well.
He's not going to spend time in a cell with another living human being.
The Department of Corrections says Wassenaar has been back in Arizona since 2018. The prison lifted Wassenaar's maximum security status. Then on Friday, the DOC says Wassenaar allegedly killed 3 prisoners, 1 behind bars for first-degree murder, the other 2 for child sex crime convictions. The Department of Corrections is telling us that they have no reason to believe that Wassenaar had any involvement in the death of his cellmate in November, that his cellmate had several underlying health conditions. The DOC also saying Wassenaar's custody level was reduced from maximum even before November because he had been behaviorally compliant over years. That's different than what we had seen in court records. And they say Wassenaar was informed and agreed that he would receive a cellmate.
Now here's the deal, folks. That's what I'm talking about right there. If we had a independent oversight, not an independent oversight, but yeah, an oversight committee to go into that and to see that, to talk to some of the staff, to be able to subpoena the information based on this guy, maybe we could have done something. Maybe we could have prevented this from happening. But we didn't have that. We didn't get that. And we don't have it. Okay, because we don't have the proper funding for it. And because of that, now we have 3 people dead. Another one was killed last week. This guy said, hey, listen, if you put me in a cell with other people, guess what? I'm going to kill them. And he did. He did. He killed them. And the prison reported one thing, and this guy who leaked it out to Miss Ham said another thing. I killed him because of this. Okay, and then the prison says the guy had a health issue. You know, I'd like to see the autopsy. Let's see how he died. Did he die because did he get stabbed? Did he get choked? How did he die? And how did the other 2 die? So that is what we are talking about. So this thing has been going on for years. You know, with different directors. Okay, so this isn't a Hobbs administration issue. or a Ducey, or a whoever was before Ducey, or a director, Shin, or the director before him. This is a system problem. We can't sit here as one party and say, oh, it's their fault, or it's their fault, when this thing has been happening for years under several administrations and under several directors. We are putting money into a system that is broken. And by doing that, we are not keeping the folks in those facilities safe. We are also not keeping the community safe, because you want to know why? Because we're not doing our jobs fully, because it's a political ping pong. It's who said and who didn't do this. We don't want to hear this bill. We don't want to put this money into it. This is a public safety issue. Plain and simple. There was one situation where prisoners broke out. They broke out because of locks. Or I'm gonna show the clip. But they broke out of the prison. We have situations where guards were assaulted because, you want to know why? There weren't enough guards. And there weren't enough guards because, would you go into a department where you could get killed because people don't want to come to work because they may get killed or injured? Again, this is not about the staff. This is about the system that we as lawmakers need to fix. I want to show you a clip about a prison break in one of the prisons. It's 3 years ago, and I think we got some. Let me see. Yeah, it's about 3 years ago, and I want to show you that clip. And this is the prison break one.
Investigation. For years, we've told you about security breakdowns at Arizona prisons, the cell doors that don't lock, the inmate fires causing evacuations. But what you're about to see may be the biggest failure yet.
And that's because it put people living outside the prison fences in danger.
This is the initial area where they breached into the VEC area.
In this video that the Department of Corrections did not want you to see, prison officials show how easily 2 inmates got away from a Florence prison.
At any point with systems like this and security like this, someone can escape and show up at your house. And it's very scary.
ABC 15 investigator Melissa Blasius has spent a full year pushing for answers.
So what went wrong at Florence's South Unit, and how can officials prevent such failures from happening again? Tonight, Melissa takes you inside a prison break.
Central Arizonans frozen in fear during a frigid, wet week in January 2021.
The subjects obviously have committed heinous crimes against persons and should be considered dangerous.
Felons John Sharpio and David Harmon expected to spend decades inside prison, now outside.
We're not going to rest until we get these 2 gentlemen back into custody.
As authorities alerted the public of the escape from Florence Prison's South Unit, the captain in charge of security was making this recording for his bosses.
The inmates were let out for a smoke break right after shift change. While the inmates were out, the 2 snuck away from the large group.
In the video, leaked to ABC 15, Captain Roderick Williams followed the path of the escapees, past 2 wide open gates to a maintenance area.
Once this area was located as a point of entry, there was a homemade tool that was recovered.
Reports say the inmates used a prison-made wrench to remove the bolts.
The camera located directly under the awning was able to catch them running past.
Prison cameras recorded the men at least 5 times.
They came to the back of the tool room,
where they kicked out an air conditioner and crawled into the building. covering the hole with a blanket to keep light inside from giving away their location.
An inventory of the tool room determined that bolt cutters were removed, crescent wrench, 2 screwdrivers, and a pair of wire cutters.
Then Sharpio and Harmon cut their way out.
They were able to get through at this location, utilizing the snips. They breached the corner of the fence there, then worked their way to this corner, started cutting. Inmates then cut through this portion, then clearing South Unit.
According to reports obtained by ABC 15, the 2 escapees would have been running through this field in the pitch dark about 7 p.m., perhaps even right down here in this canal bank as they headed toward the town of Florence and its thousands of residents. ABC 15 reviewed 2,000 pages of documents about the escape. Sharpio and Harmon walked away from that smoke break at 6:04 p.m. 2 electronic zone security alarms went off, one at 6:17, the other at 7:01. When those areas were checked, staff gave the all clear. It wasn't until a routine head count at 8:30 that anybody realized they were missing. 2.5 hours had passed. So nobody saw them on the video. Nobody noticed they were gone.
I think that they had that part planned out pretty well.
This corrections employee is familiar with the South Unit. ABC 15 agreed to shield his identity because past ADCRR whistleblowers faced retribution.
It was a systematic failure of multiple devices that should have been in place that were not.
This is beyond a catastrophic failure.
Sean Holland is a former assistant deputy warden. He previously told ABC 15 about security problems at Lewis Prison, and he was fired from ADCRR in 2020. We showed him the Florence escape walkthrough.
That is a massive failure in security. It's almost like they gave him an invitation. They're like, hey, come on in. Pick your weapon.
Sean says these tools should have been kept in separate locked cages. He points out missing razor wire and unlocked gates, and then the cut fences. They went through 10 fences.
Are you serious? 10? How the hell did they go through 10? 10 fences? That's impossible. It should literally be impossible. Somebody should be arrested for that. Absolutely arrested. That's beyond negligence. That's criminal negligence.
No one was arrested. No one was even fired. One correction supervisor got a written reprimand, and 2 other top South Unit officials were allowed to retire, both the deputy warden and the chief of security, Captain Williams.
It's pretty embarrassing to see this happen. It should never happen. It makes the people of the state of Arizona and the taxpayers feel like we're unable to do our job.
The Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry denied our repeated requests for an interview, but did announce system-wide improvements, including enhanced physical security, including additional fences, reinforced gates, and detection systems, enhanced storage system requirements, and annual inspections by the Inspector General for security policy compliance. But this employee says one thing was never fixed: staffing levels. Look at this roster. From the night of the escape, it shows South Unit was below minimum staffing, just 11 correctional officers on duty. There have been nights where there have been fewer.
Correct. There's nights that I've seen them come in with 5 or 6 people.
How do you keep track?
There's times you have to just lock the doors and do a walk in one building and then go back and forth, and that's just the way it is until something changes.
And that's what he wants Corrections Director David Shin to know.
In order to have security, you have to have staff.
Whether there are 10 fences or 11, inmates will still escape if no one's watching. In Florence, I'm investigator Melissa Blasius, ABC 15, Arizona.
John Sharpio and David Harmon were captured 5 days after their escape. They're back in prison, this time in maximum security, awaiting trial on charges related to the case. Right now on ABC15.com, go even deeper inside a prison break. Watch the full uncut video of the escape walkthrough, see a timeline of how prison staff discovered this prison break, and follow the fugitive's footprints with an interactive map of the town of Florence. And ABC 15 investigator Melissa Blasius is back next week with a report on the prison staffing crisis still happening now. This is a critical public safety issue for everyone.
Okay, so there's the public safety aspect of this whole thing. Not only is there an issue inside of the prison, there is the issue outside the prison that we see. That happened 3 years ago. We had the murders that happened a few months ago. Then we had one that happened 2 weeks ago. We've had the lock issues on this deal. Now, how do we? If I'm the governor for a day, and I'm not saying I would be, the governor. However, if that is my point of no return, to make sure that our prisons are secure, funded, resourced, up to strength and personnel, so on and so forth. And I mentioned that in my State of the State. I'm not saying that Governor Hobbs mentioned that, but if that is something that is important to me, I get a bill from the House and the Senate of a budget proposal, and I go through that and I see that there is no funding for a oversight, then I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to send this back to you all to fix this, to put funding in it. Or I am going to use my supplemental dollars to fund this office. I mean, and again, I'm not Monday morning quarterback because I was, I ran an amendment on the bill. Senator Bullock wrote the bill. She wrote the bill with the funding in it. And at the end of the day, again, we were told that the governor wasn't for it. Now, again, I was not in the meetings, and that is second, third hand information. I don't know who was in the meeting. I don't know what was said. All I know is we needed an amendment to strip out the funding, and that's what we did to get that thing signed. And now, why do we need to get it signed? Why did we need to get it in on the books? Well, because number one, we have 2 federal lawsuits that have been waged against the Department of Corrections for the healthcare issue. We have 2 of them. All right. That piece of legislation hopefully will hold off the federal government from coming into Arizona, taking over the prisons, because we have failed at it. And we would be under the foot of the federal government, running their programs in the prisons and funding much, much more, because they are going to be running it and telling us what to do as a legislative body. So hopefully that policy is put out there. So that would be to mitigate if that happened. I'm not saying it's going to happen. However, the federal government is already suing us about issues in this prison. You don't think a judge is going to say, you know what, I'm tired of this. Okay, we're going to go into receivership. Okay, federal government's going to come in, the federal Department of Corrections, y'all are going to go in there and y'all are going to run this prison. Because it doesn't seem like the state government can do it. And we'll see things done a lot differently. We will see price tags rise. We will see taxpayer dollars rise, because we got to get that money from somewhere. So let's do it right. While we have the policy already there, let's fund this thing 1507 so we can do this right. We can protect our communities. We can protect the staff. It gives the director the ability to do what he or she needs to do to get their programs embedded. And overall, we would have a safe system. Now, in 2021, I wrote a bill, HB 2167, and that was the proposal of the independent office. That bill was actually amended by Senator Bullock at the time when she was in the House to try to get that thing over the finish line. I had to go back to the Senate, and the bill died. This year, SB 1507 signed into law. However, again, with no funding, and it showed a lack of enforcement authority. The body can't recommend anything. But number one, the body cannot even put together an office because there's no money to hire a director. Now, do you think that we wrote a bill to create an oversight department and say, oh, they don't need money. We don't need money. No. Okay, so let's stop playing the games. Let's stop playing the games. Now, last year, the Auditor General's office in 2024, the Auditor General's office went into the prison and made and did an audit on all the systems in the prison. We did another one, or we did one when I was in the first time in 2022 or 21 or 22. And we saw the problems that were discovered during the ad hoc that I held of what were the issues of the prisons. And a lot of those issues that we saw are still are found in this new report of 24-105. Now I'm going to bring up the report from this last year that was just done. It was just done. And I'm going to go through some of the things that were found in the report that let me close this out really quickly. Still learning how to do some of this, y'all. Here we go. Okay. So right here is what you see is the Auditor General's report that was done July of last year, 2024. Now, the Auditor General office, they work for the legislative body. So as you can see, it took them 3 months to actually do this report. And they go in and do a deep dive. Now, I've worked with the director of the Auditor General's office on many occasions. Awesome professional. She knows what she's doing. By the book. She doesn't cut corners. So I know that, like the report that I asked her to do back in 21, this report that was done last year was done right. Now, the reason why this report came to be was because in the bill, in the ad hoc, I demanded that the Auditor General go back after 2 years and see, were there any improvements? So it talks about some of the things that they found. Now, one of the issues in the first report is that the department they were not releasing eligible inmates, folks that were actually that were eligible under HB 1310 to be released were not released. Okay. This time, it seems like they correctly released 79 of the 80 inmates based on the authority of HB 1310. Again, these are the recommendations and some of the issues or what have you that they found. Now you can go, if you want to look at this, I'm not going to go through all of this in this video or in this video podcast. I am showing you where you can get this, and you can go to www.azauditor.gov and click on the reports, and you can find these reports. And I would suggest anyone who is interested in this problem or this issue to pull this report and pull the first report. Okay, and see if you can find the differences. Were there any improvements. Okay. Now, again, you can go to the Auditor General's. All you do is go to reports. You go to entity, and you go down to state agencies. You click that state agency. You can either go here and you can pick the Department of Corrections. Once you pick the Department of Corrections, and once you do that, let me go back. You pick the Department of Corrections and that'll come up, or you just scroll down and you just find the Department of Corrections. And here's the report that we were looking at. Now, the report that I actually was, let me find the report of, let me see, I think it's 23. Let me see. I'm not sure if that report will come up. Nevertheless, again, if you want to go in and check this out, you want to see what reports are out there. I think I do have that report. I'll see if I can pull it up, and just see the difference. Okay. Again, this was done in July 23rd, 2024, and there are some comparisons with it. So, what time we got? All right, we got about 10 minutes left. I want to show you another clip. It's about a whistleblower. Okay, and she's talking about what she found. She was an employee, and what the issues that she found in the prison. She was, I think she was a CO, and she was scared to go to the leadership to let them know that these issues were there. Now, I will tell you in all transparency, this was 6 years ago. And again, as I said, this has been happening for years. So it's not one administration's fault. It's not one director's fault. And this is not on the staff. Again, this is the system that is broken that we need to fix.
Safe investigation exposing broken cell doors in Buckeyes Lewis Prison.
A whistleblower, union officials, and inmate advocates all joining together again to speak out and demand answers about what's being done to fix the problem and hold top prison officials accountable.
The joint press conference coming days after ABC 15 investigator Dave Biskobing's interview with this brave insider who leaked the videos and is causing major change.
At the press conference, Sergeant Gabriela Contreras said the governor's office contacted her after our interview to say they'd be looking into her whistleblower complaint. Today, she also joined with others to call for more transparency into what's being done about these broken prison doors. Sitting next to correctional officer union reps and inmate advocates, Sergeant Gabriela Contreras called for Governor Doug Ducey to replace the entire DOC administration.
I think they need to get rid of everybody from the top down. They need a whole new administration.
Contreras got caught and suspended for downloading the videos before she leaked them. The union blasting the administration for punishing her, but ignoring the problem she risked her career to expose.
This department, this director owes her an apology. We're demanding an apology. You don't take someone who turned in a crime and punish them with 40 hours off? Have you lost your mind?
Union Rep Carlos Garcia says the prison system failed to properly maintain the locks for years. That's how we got here.
These are top-of-the-line locks. If we would have maintained it like we were supposed to, we wouldn't be in this dilemma.
Inmate advocate Donna Leona Ham with Middle Ground Prison Reform says in an email, Prison Director Charles Ryan says they do have door maintenance teams, some staffed by inmates.
I'm not comforted by that response at all.
You're not comforted by inmates fixing their own locks?
Correct.
Ham and Garcia both called for more transparency from the governor's office about the outside investigation that Doug Ducey announced 3 weeks ago.
A word about what's the scope of that study, what are they going to look at, what is their deadline, what are the parameters.
Everyone at this table promising that officers, inmates, and the union won't back down and will continue to work to expose the truth.
If you got more videos, leak them to us. We need them. We need to get a sense of urgency here. We can't afford to have any more inmates killed or staff beaten down because there's no sense of urgency.
I'm investigator Dave Biscobing, ABC.
Okay, now, again, you saw that, and you saw what's going on in there. That was 6 years ago. Okay, that was about the time that we did our ad hoc on criminal justice reform. We zeroed in on the prison system. That lady lost her job because she reported. Now, when we have staff members that are scared to go to the chain of command in the prisons and say, listen, this is a problem. I'm concerned about my safety. I'm concerned that some of these inmates are going to escape or beat each other down or beat up staff members. Can you fix this? Can you help us? And they get the same answers because they don't have the resources to get these things done. Would you work there? We're going to show one more tape, and then we're going to close up. And I'm going to tell you how to get in touch with me, and so you can help me come to a place where I can find the resources that are needed to protect our communities and the staff that work in our prison systems. I will find that in a second. Here we go. Again, I am not real good at this, so here we go.
Inside an Arizona prison, the same site where several inmates were murdered just last month.
Tonight, we get reaction from the Department of Corrections and a prison advocate who says things must change. Nicole Christine joins us in the studio with this exclusive story tonight. Nicole.
Now, this was last month. Okay, this is last month.
Well, Brian and Ashley, advocates for prison reform say this video sounds the alarm on a lack of safety for both inmates and their guards. Now, we do want to warn you that the video of the attack is violent and may be disturbing to some viewers.
The inmates are running the asylum, and that's not what the taxpayers in Arizona are paying for.
A padlock and chain, those the apparent weapons of choice in a recent inmate-on-inmate assault caught on camera inside an Arizona state prison. The video lasts nearly 3 minutes and shows the attack spilling out into the prison yard. Donna Ham, the director of Middle Ground Prison Reform, calls the assault disturbing and a violation of laws in place.
You're really dancing with the case law, which protects an inmate's right to be safe. Inmates are all there because they've committed felonies, but they aren't there with a death sentence.
The Arizona Department of Corrections sending Fox 10 a statement on the incident that says in part, quote, the incident in this video was isolated and there is no ongoing threat in this housing unit. And despite the brutal nature of the video, a DOC spokesperson says, quote, no inmates received serious injuries and those involved were moved to higher custody housing. Sources tell Fox 10 this happened inside the Arizona State Prison complex in Tucson. Ham says another concern for her when watching the video was the apparent lack of response by prison staff.
No one came to his aid. No staff member attempted in any way to stop the assault. And that includes when the assault spilled out into the open recreation yard.
And Ham says safety concerns extend past those serving prison time.
You look at the video and you see that inmate swinging a metal lock on what appears to be some sort of a strap or a belt. He could just as easily be swinging that at a staff member. This is and should be a concern for all of the staff and all of the inmates.
And again, our sources telling us this happened in Tucson. Ashley, just last month, you covered 3 inmates who were murdered there, and Donna Ham told you that there were warning signs.
Yeah, Ricky Wassenaar serving 16 life sentences and killed 3 men in one attack. But if you reach out to the director, which I'm sure you're going to do, he'll tell you that he's proud of his staff there. He says that they did everything right, and it could have been much worse, and that was an isolated incident. You have to think about what the prison guards are thinking in this.
Sure.
Like, when you see that video, I wouldn't want to get involved. I wouldn't want to get hurt. So it's tough. It's tough inside of a prison.
Yeah, we're hoping to sit down with the director at some point and talk to him a little bit more about this, because they did admit that there is a spike in violence that they've been seeing, and they're trying to address that. So we want to learn a little bit more about what goes into addressing that and handling that in an environment like a state prison.
What is the role of a prison guard when there's a huge fight breaking out? What can you do?
Well, they have to get in the middle at that point. That's their job.
Yeah.
Right? What, you stand back and let it go?
Well, it's harder. It's easier to say than do it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But that's the job.
Okay, so as you saw, that was excuse me. I had to tell my dogs to shut up. As you saw, that was an attack on an inmate, another inmate. Now, here is an attack on a police officer, or not a police officer, but not a police officer, but a staff member there. And you know, it's insane what happens in these facilities. So let me go ahead and show this one really quickly, and then we'll end this with a call to action as we go forward with this. So I'll go ahead and share this last one with you.
Assaulted. What led up to it, and what are the consequences that inmate now faces? Just over a year on the job, a correctional officer at Lewis Prison brutally assaulted inmate Jacob Purdue, accused of the beating. Purdue has a violent criminal.
Now, I want you to look at that really quickly. I want you to look at this. This is a staff that was brutally assaulted. And not because the staff did something wrong, it's because they don't have the resources that they need to stop something like this from happening. The bill, SB 1507, can mitigate some of this, can protect the staff, can protect the COs. Maybe we may be able to put a dent in some of this. Let's go ahead and finish this.
Accused of the beating. Purdue has a violent criminal history dating back to 1995.
He's lost his sight on his left arm and on his left eye. I mean, I'm stuttering because it's horrifying.
Carlos Garcia, executive director of the Arizona Correctional Peace Officers Association, blamed correctional facilities for cutting corners to save money and putting officers at risk by doing what he calls overrides.
You take that inmate now and say, you know what? Let's just bump him down to a lower level. Now we can put him in a lower custody yard and save money because now he can go and walk and feed himself. So it puts all the danger and burden on the staff.
Anthony Spears, who retired after 20 years working as a correctional officer in Arizona, said he refused to work at Lewis Prison.
Mismanaged, being violent. They tried, when I was going to Perryville, they tried to send me to Lewis first, and I told them no, I wouldn't go out there. And like I say, I'll go out there and work overtime, but being assigned there, it's just, it's pretty bad.
It's already a dangerous job the state struggles to fill, and Spears says overrides are often the cause of officers being assaulted.
They override an inmate and put him out of lower custody. and they're not even supposed to be in that custody level, and those are the inmates that assault.
In a statement to ABC 15, the Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry said that the inmate, Jacob Purdue, was transferred into maximum custody housing immediately following the incident, and a criminal investigation is underway, saying the department will not tolerate violence. However, it did not reply when asked why Purdue was not in maximum custody to begin with. Garcia said he sees things getting worse before they get better.
There is no answer. So the future right now that we have is the death of an officer. It's getting closer every day. Every day our assaults are going up.
Ben Brown, ABC 15, Arizona.
Okay, so gonna go ahead and we're gonna end this. We're gonna stop this. You know, I can go on and on and on and on because that's what it is. It's on and on and on. Those are just a few of the issues that we are seeing in our prisons. Thanks, Sherry, for writing, tuning in and sending the text. And I do appreciate you. This is something that we cannot look past anymore. We can't say, well, you know, we can kick it down the road. We can't kick this down the road. You saw, and that's just one of the many assaults. The guy lost his eye or can't see out of that eye, as was reported. We had an inmate kill 3 people. We had last month. Then we had another inmate kill another person about a week ago. We had people escape. We had inmates killing. There are inmates beating each other with locks inside the facility, taking the fight outside, and you didn't see a guard around. Not because they weren't doing their job, because they didn't have enough guards. So again, this is not against the staff, the guards that work there. It isn't. This is about accountability. We start with accountability by making sure we are mitigating these issues with SB 1507 fully funded. So a commission, not a commission, so this oversight can start to find the problems, as we obviously can see, report back to the House and the Senate of what needs to happen. Or as this person said, somebody is going to get killed, and it may be a staff member. We got staff members that don't want to work there. As that gentleman said, retired correctional officers said he'd only work there if it were overtime. You got people that are quitting. You got people that gotten fired in the past because they've reported that these things are happening. It is time for us to stop looking away on this. We can no longer sit on the sidelines and do nothing and push it off, push it down the road. We can't do that anymore. It's a responsibility that we need to look into. And this is not about a Republican or a Democrat or an independent thing. This is not. This is about public safety. How do we address this? How do we keep the public safe? How do we keep our employees safe? How do we keep dangerous people from escaping? How do we do that? The Oversight Commission, SB 1507, does that. I encourage you all to go in and check it out and read that bill. Go to the Auditor General's office, call me up, get in touch with your lawmakers, reach out to Senator Bullock. Her information is on the Senate webpage, and ask and be a concerned citizen about this, because this does not just affect people where these prisons in these towns where these prisons are located. This is about keeping Arizona safe.
I am the example. That's my intention. The choices I make each and every day, they are not just for me, they are for everyone around me. I am the example to everyone I touch and the compound effect of those people. My example has a flow-on effect to everyone around me, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. Everything I do, I set the example. I am grateful for the opportunity to be the example. I set the example. That's my intention. I set the example through my actions, not my words, not by what I say, but by what I do.